What is up, everybody? Hopefully, you're doing well. It is time to do my review of Guild Wars Reforged. I already did an early thoughts video yesterday after the first couple of hours of streaming. I have since played another 6 hours or so, and I have some additional thoughts on the game as it stands right now. Having just come out yesterday, obviously, this is a work where it's put together by some ex-ArenaNet developers who have worked on this Reforged edition. They are currently accepting feedback over on their forums. And I think that this is the great moment for me to say that while I am having a good time with things and I am largely fueled by nostalgia, I also analyze things from the perspective of a new player. And after around 8 hours of hands-on time, I think we've got enough time in to take a look at some of the things, pros and cons, to help those of you who might be coming into this for the very first time and making a decision about whether or not you think this is something you want to invest a bunch of time into. Because there are some cracks in the facade. Still exceptionally well done, but there are a few things to talk about. So without further ado, let's dive in. So I talked about yesterday just the overall aspect of what this offers the player, and it is an overall fun experience if you are someone who, for example, is coming back because of nostalgia, which is sort of like where I'm at. I want this character right here, and we are going to go log in here. The nostalgia for me is something that is definitely enough to keep me going for a little while, but it's not enough to keep me playing long term. And I think that's true for most nostalgia players, whether it's this game, World of Warcraft Classic, EverQuest 2, Progression Server, EverQuest 1, Progression Server, Lord of the Rings Online, Legendary Servers. Anytime we come in and play these classic experiences, the nostalgia is enough to keep you going for a little while, but after that, it's like, you know what? I've seen all this, I've done all this. It was great 20 years ago, but is it great today? I think that if you loved Guild Wars 1 and you haven't played it in a very long time and you enjoy playing with a controller, then you're and you would like to come back and play this again because you have a bunch of free time on your hands, then you're probably going to be pleasantly surprised. I think that overall, the controller work that they've done is passable. It does a pretty good job of allowing you to play the game. Movement's great. General, holding the left trigger and using these abilities, holding the right trigger to use those abilities, and then up here on the top left, you've got various things that you can open up. And then there's some, snapping that works. So if I wanted to, for example, open up the inventory, we could go in here and, there's some general snapping. But there are some weird things here and there. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, because if you are someone who is coming into this as a brand new player, this is kind of where I want to focus the rest of this review on, because I've already sort of talked in the early thoughts video, which is the one I did before this, sort of the perspective of someone coming back for the first time in 20 years and being like, oh my God, this is nostalgic, and it's really cool that they have controller support, they've got Steam Deck support. And that's the thing, is like all the players who are going to be coming into this and playing on the Steam Deck who have never played this before, and this is where I think some of the cracks start to show. Not to say that this isn't fun or that it's not worth it. I am just putting this out there as some things to pay attention to. So, movement's great. Generally speaking, the controls are set up in a way that's pretty self-explanatory. However, there's a lot of complexities to this game once you get into the henchmen, and if you have a companion like I do with the Beastmaster, and once you start getting beyond the basics of the single player low level content, the deeper you get into the game, the more party members you're expected to bring along with. We're already up to 4 total party members. You eventually get up to, I think it's around 8 party members. And for some of the later missions, you're having to do complex things such as telling party members to specifically stand in one area and not move from that area. And so you're having to get into do these complex controls with the henchmen, and that's something where the controller starts to lose its luster a little bit, because there's no easy way to do that with any of the pre-mapped buttons. Instead, you have to go into cursor mode, which is not At this point, if I'm being forced to use a cursor for anything, I might as well put the controller down and go back to the mouse and I have the mouse over here. Sorry, it's in the wrong area. Because you have much more control over the mouse cursor with an actual mouse as opposed to doing it with the thumbstick on the controller, because this is just not conducive. Because you start getting over here into these menu areas over here, and you're like, well, there's no snapping once you get over here to this area. There is limited, I should say, but like when we get into, matter of fact, if I go out here, this will be a better way to show this. Where's the exit? With the companion, because I can pull my companion out and show you guys what I'm talking about a little bit here as we're going. So the cursor mode is where it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the controller support, because you are needing to do complex commands with the controllers, and it's kind of tricky to do. So here I am with my pet, and if I want to do anything with the pet, I need to first and foremost come over here, and I have to navigate over here to this button and open this up. And this is where there's not really any snapping here, right? And so this is where you start to lose some of the fine-tuned controls over controlling a companion, such as a pet. And the companions get more complex when you start having additional henchmen in your party, like a healer and a tank and a mage and so on and so forth. And this is where the controller starts to feel like it still needs a little bit of love when it comes to the sort of minutia of controlling henchmen in your party. There are some issues as well, like quality of life things that modern players are going to be looking for that are lacking in the current version of Reforged that hopefully they're going to be taking a look at, are things like, and this goes back to the game was built 20 years ago, so it's understanding the context of these things being 20 years old. But as the team continues to look at adding and refining more quality of life features, these are some of the things that have cropped up during the last 8 hours of gameplay. There's no proximity loot or area loot. So every time you kill a mob, if something drops, there's lots of different things dropping around the field. You're expected to run around and individually loot each item. In fact, there's even a thing where if you hold the left trigger, select previous loot or select next loot with the left thumbstick, because they want you individually going to each individual piece of loot. It becomes a frickin' nightmare when you've killed 15, 20 mobs and there are a dozen pieces of loot scattered around the battlefield, and you have to run around and individually pick up each one, whether it's by running up and doing a proximity loot or by using this functionality here with the controller. It would be much better if they had a modern quality of life function where it's an area loot where you click one and it loots everything within a radius, or have it be a proximity loot where you run and once you're in a certain proximity of the loot, it just automatically picks it up and puts it in your inventory. We've already talked about the cursor mode needing some additional love, especially when dealing with the henchmen and companions. Lack of tooltips is another thing. There's just generally speaking, because it's an older game, there's a lack of tooltips, and so there's also a lack of tutorials on teaching you how to play the game if you are a new player and you're coming in and you're playing on a controller and you're playing with a Steam Deck, for example, and you're completely controller bound. There is no explanation for pretty much any of the basic gameplay beyond like here's how to shoot and everything else. There's no explanation of how to like do the complex things with your pet or with your henchmen. There's no explanation of any of that. There's no tooltips for any of that. That's something that definitely needs some love. And I think one of the biggest issues is right now there's a complete lack of, like when you're working on quests, as an example, it occasionally will show you when you have like a main mission versus zone missions. So the Ascalon quests are the zone quests that we have, and occasionally it will show you like a main quest, but more often than not it will not track the main quests for you. And so what'll happen is you'll finish a main quest and you won't even know that you're supposed to have another main quest, or that you're on another main quest. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that by turning around here and zoning back in, because We have entered an area, and if you notice on the right-hand side, on that over there, there's a button that says Enter Mission, and yet I don't have a quest in my inventory for anything. So what is that intermission thing? Well, that's the next primary quest, the next main quest, which is in the location that we're in. And if you don't know that, then how are you going to know that there's another main mission that you need to be working on? Because the quests are often vague and there's no reminders that there is a main mission here, nor are there any waypoints to show you that there's a main mission here. So if you're a new player and you maybe didn't realize that you were dropped into a location, because here's the thing, when we finished the previous mission, it automatically teleported us here. Now, that's all well and good, but it teleported us here and then there's no explanation of what we're supposed to do next. There's no glowing waypoint. There's no NPC telling you this is what you need to do. There's just, you need to be aware that you're supposed to click enter mission to start the next mission. That's definitely something that could be, it was confusing to me this morning, not remembering that from 20 years ago. I had to go on, look it up online, and then we have a bunch of people in chat. We were talking about it for about 45 minutes this morning. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. That is definitely something that needs a little bit of work in terms of providing new players and returning players like myself with a little bit of nudging, a little bit of visual feedback in the form of, because normally speaking, the other quest, if you have a main quest tracked, you're going to get that green flash on the minimap that we see. And then if you have an NPC in the area, he's also going to have the icon. But in this case, I'm in an area where there's a main mission, and yet I wouldn't be aware that there's a main mission unless I knew that it was here. So that's definitely something that needs a little bit of work. And then two final things. There does appear to be some, while they have done an admirable job at getting the game modernized and running on modern machines with modern graphics, modern resolution scaling and a customizable UI. All of that is amazing. There are some issues with the bloom and the VFX, where there have been multiple times today during a couple of the missions where an enemy would cast a spell and it would immediately tank the frames, and we would start seeing like single-digit frame rates. And I'm on a 4080 machine, which should have no problems running this game, and normally we're rocking 200 plus frames. And suddenly we're getting single digits because of some high definition VFX bloom rendering and stuff. The fix I found was to very quickly hit Alt Enter and to go from full screen down to windowed mode and then back into full screen, and it would clear the issue and we would be back to having smooth as silk gameplay. But there are some hiccups with the high resolution VFX and rendering at the moment, and hopefully that's something they can continue to work out as they get deeper into the launch of Guild Wars Reforged. And the final thing I would like to point out, which is a carryover from the old school days of the way they used to do things when they didn't know any better. This is something very important for modern players to understand. When you go to intermission and you go into one of the main quest areas that is instanced and you're on that mission, you are locked in. If you go AFK, if you are booted from the zone, if you have to log out for any reason, if you have an emergency, whatever the case might be, you are up shit creek without a paddle, and you will have to redo that entire mission all over from scratch if for some reason you have to leave. And that is something where I would point out that the mission length of these missions can often be an hour and a half, hour plus, easily hour plus, hour and a half. We had one today that was an hour and a half, and they get longer. Some are shorter, but there are longer missions the deeper you get into the campaign. And this is an old school way of doing things from 20 years ago, before game developers pivoted towards realizing that it was far more friendly to have 30-minute or less instances so that people can duck in and duck out of gameplay really easily. And also the fact that there's no progression saving of any kind. So if you get booted offline, your power goes out, you got to run to the vet because you have a pet emergency, you have a spouse emergency, a child emergency, you got an appointment. You need to make sure that you are locked and loaded when you sit down to play. And I don't know that that's something that they can fix or add any sort of quality of life. It would be great if they could add some sort of a progression saving system to the game, but I don't know if they can, considering that's just the way it was made 20 years ago, and it may not even be something that can be done. But it was definitely something I would factor into my final review from a new player's perspective, because this is not something where you can just sit down and play for 15 to 20 minutes at a time. Even the general missions, because there's not a lot of fast travel in this game. When you're talking about like going out and exploring the zones, many of these places are quite large and there's not a lot of fast travel. And so you will be doing a lot of time running between locations. And I would argue that many of the quests are going to be 30 minutes or longer. And so it's very difficult to just jump in and do anything of value with 15 to 30 minute segments. You're really needing, if you're going to be playing this game, you really do need to be sitting down for an hour plus. So that's going to be a challenge for modern casual players who may be more accustomed to being able to jump into something like Elder Scrolls Online, or Star Wars: The Republic, or Fallout 76, Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft, where you can easily jump in and do something in 15 to 20 minutes and then make some progress and then log out again. You're not going to be able to do that necessarily in this game, because of how long things take, how much space there is between locations. These are things that you have to consider if you are a new player who has never played this before, if you're going to come into this game. That all being said, I do think that this is an amazing opportunity for people who have never played before, because the Reforged combo pack comes with, I think, everything other than Eye of the North. So it's the base game and 3 expansions, which is hundreds of hours of entertainment. And the graphics, while they are dated, aren't horribly bad. I mean, I play Lord of the Rings Online from time to time, and it's kind of, Lord of the Rings Online has better graphics than this. But it's like, if you don't mind graphics that aren't necessarily modern standards, and you just want something that's fun to play and has a lot of gameplay to sink your teeth into, this is a great option, especially if you're going to be playing on a handheld over the holidays. But I think it is important to go in with your eyes wide open and understand the pros and cons. As I said, those are the things I've noticed after about 8 hours of gameplay. I have had fun over the past 8 hours, but for me, I'm just here for the nostalgia, and I really just wanted to see how the controller was going to be working. It works pretty good, other than the things I already mentioned. And of course, beyond that, to give you an example of the complexity I was talking about, if you go in here into the options, actually, I got to go over to this keyboard because I'm on the wrong mouse and keyboard over here, just to show you guys what I'm talking about. Like, if you go to the controls, you're going to notice that these are all the things that can be like customized, and all the different things that you can hotkey, or all of these options. You can't put all of those on the controller. And there's also like just overall an issue with like not being able to, at least not that I'm aware of, there's no way to customize any of the controls on the controller. So you're kind of stuck with the controls that they give you, and then dealing with all the other complexities of the game. So there are some considerations to look at when you're playing this, but if you just want to jump in and play through the base storyline and have fun with it, it's all there for you to get into. And if you want to get into the complexities of group gameplay and really the minutia of controlling your henchmen and everything else, you're probably going to want to be playing with mouse and keyboard and the controller at the same time, and maybe mixing the best of both worlds, if I can say that right. Anyway, food for thought. That's my review on Guild Wars Reforged. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Hopefully you're having fun. Until next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy gaming.